People threw sticks to hunt, and that's likely how they discovered that certain bent sticks would circle back. Boomerangs have come a long way since then and are now finely crafted gizmos. Boomerangs come in many shapes, but each one is all wing, like those of an aircraft. They start with a solid piece of wood. Here, the growth rings are highlighted to demonstrate that the later growth is narrower. This means it's denser, so it will be easier to work with. The woodworker takes 16 strips of that dense wood and places them in a steam box for 20 minutes. The steam makes the strips much more flexible. They're so elastic, they can be bent by hand. Watch how he arcs all 16 layers at once, with very little effort. Now he has the basic form of a boomerang. To improve the contour, he clamps the strips in a boomerang-shaped mold. They remain clamped for a day or two, long enough to dry and harden into the bent form. He spreads glue onto each bent strip, then clamps them together in the mold again. This time, the mold has been coated with wax to prevent the glued strips from sticking to it. He leaves it to set overnight, then removes the laminated boomerang shape. It's solid, but far too chunky to fly. He slices it into pieces 8 to 12 millimeters thick. The piece of laminated wood yields about 6 thinner pieces. Each one is light enough to be a boomerang. But it needs more form, and he has to get rid of those rough edges. So he outlines a more refined design and cuts it out. But there's an easier way to make a boomerang, with sturdy aircraft plywood. With plywood, there's no need to laminate and then physically bend the wood. He simply cuts out the pattern, then sculpts the tops of the wings with a drum sander. He's made the tops of the two wings curve upwards, but in opposite directions. It's this contouring that will make the boomerang fly in a circle. On some models, embedded lead weights help to balance it. That laminated boomerang gets the same contouring, but he uses files instead of a drum sander. Laminated wood responds better to this technique, but it's much more labor-intensive and it takes skill. One mistake in the shape and size, and it will throw off the aerodynamics of the boomerang. But our woodworker has the job down to a fine art. To tune the boomerang, he softens it over a steaming kettle while twisting the wings into an upward flip, similar to an airplane wing. This blower dries the wood to ensure it stays flipped. He then sets the boomerang on a flat surface to check the curve. He sprays sealant onto the boomerang, and finally, he gives it several coats of lacquer for a high-gloss finish. And now these boomerangs are ready to fly circles around the competition.